Correct moments in history. April 29. Jerry Springer resigns from Cincinnati City Council after writing $25 personal check to a prostitute. The name Jerry Springer has long been synonymous with questionable judgment. Best known for his eponymous Jerry Springer Show, the trash TV host spent 27 years highlighting important human interest stories, such as, "I cheated because you're pregnant," "My brother took my V-card," and "I married a horse." But long before the daytime tabloid king spent his time on Earth manipulating the lowest common denominator, he was a beloved and dedicated public servant. Cincinnati residents remember him as the most gifted and natural politician of their time. Political consultants describe him as the best they've ever seen, bar none. And if he hadn't sealed his political fate with the stroke of a pen, for the stroke of a pen 15, he may have found his too hot for TV face etched into Mount Rushmore. Born in a London tube station in 1944, Jerry Springer grew up to earn a law degree from Northwestern University. And at just 27 years old, he was elected to Cincinnati City Council and served as a grassroots politician, occasionally tagging along with garbage men, spending the night with prisoners in jail, and pretending that noodles belong in chili. His natural political talents brought in comparisons to Bobby Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, and Bill Clinton. They were closest with that last one. On April 29, 1974, the Cincinnati Enquirer published a story about a well-known political figure under investigation in Ohio and Kentucky. A vice squad had reportedly uncovered an unnamed politician's involvement in a prostitution operation at a health club. That evening, Mr. Springer abruptly resigned from his post, and the following morning, he appeared at a press conference to explain that he had, in fact, quit due to problems that were better faced as a private citizen, as he sought to balance his career and his checkbook. A day later, he testified in court to being and having an active member at a Northern Kentucky health club, where an ID card apparently grants access to a very steamy room. While maintaining that he only used the club for legitimate purposes, borrowing a phrase from every guilty mobster in history, he nevertheless admitted to issuing 2 personal checks for sex, one for $25 in return for sexual relations, and one for $50 for an act of prostitution. In the memo field, he'd written "for services rendered." There was no word on where he'd left his receipt. In spite of Mr. Springer's public flogging, Cincinnati voters, including the wife that he cheated on, ultimately forgave his transgressions and admired his candor. He was handily re-elected back to the city council in 1975, and even became the city's mayor in 1977. In 1982, he sought the state's highest office and ran for governor, but was ultimately dogged by opponents for his $75 investment in a low-rent massage parlor. He attempted to take his critics head-on, releasing an ad in which he reminded Ohio that he spent time with a woman that he shouldn't have and paid her with a check, but wound up placing a distant third in the Democratic primary. The electorate at large declined to embrace Jerry or his Springer. While Mr. Springer would spend the next several decades flirting with a return to public office, he primarily served as John to a different form of prostitution: television news. Reinventing himself as a local television host, his grasp on public affairs made him a popular anchor and commentator. But after launching a thoughtful political talk program, the format was quickly retooled to satiate the public's appetite for stories of hillbilly heartbreak, marrying a 16-year-old, and boxing babes. From 1991 to 2018, Mr. Springer would go on to host 4,969 episodes of what TV Guide described as the worst show in television history, because of its corrosive impact on American culture, and because the newsroom hadn't been released yet. But if it hadn't been for April 29, 1974, his promising political career might have followed in the footsteps of Arnold Schwarzenegger, achieving the American dream of ascending to the second highest office in the land as a foreign-born citizen before crashing back to Earth in a public sex scandal. If only he'd paid with cash. Hey, if you enjoyed this, let us know in the comments. And while you're down there, like the video, subscribe to Cracked, and hit the bell to get notified for when new stuff comes out. Until then, browse the old stuff. Or hit up eBay for the really old stuff. Like the time we murdered a bunch of beloved cartoon characters.